Even for my interview, I wasn't this much tensed or worried, honestly.
It's stage fright, isn't it? Because it's being recorded. Okay, so thank you for joining this group, and I think this is a really good way of doing this task. So we were tasked with looking at how we've improved our teaching and learning strategies over the last 12 months. So um, so what we've agreed to do is something that's similar to an action learning set and a listening circle where we can actually learn from each other through this process. So what we're going to do is we're going to have about 5 or 7 minutes of just talking about our example and sharing what we did. And then after that 5, 7 minutes, and I will chair that and I will check for times that we don't over talk. I'm one of the ones that will over talk. So please, when I do my bit, please tell me if I'm talking for more than 7 minutes. And then after that, we'll have another 5, 7 minutes to ask questions and questions of the person whose example it is. They can tell us a little bit more. We might be interested in parts of what they've told us. And then at the end, we'll just do a quick summary and that's it. So we'll introduce ourselves first. So I'm Ranjit Khutan, Head of Public Health. Moving on to Rathnakar.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rathnakar Andugula, lecturer in public health. Thank you.
I'm Jennifer Lim. I'm Senior Lecturer in Public Health.
Hi, I'm Marc Chrysanthou. I'm Senior Lecturer in Public Health.
That's great. So I'll start. So I had a few different examples, but my examples are slightly different because I don't actually teach a module. So I supervise PhD students, doctoral students, and I supervise master's students. And I have done a bit of preparation for learning materials for the MPH online and the HEP program. But what I decided to look at was something that I've implemented, that I use with my doctoral students, that I've implemented with my master's students. So with my doctoral students, I noticed a few years ago really that when I was a doctoral student, I would attend my meetings and I'd have an agenda. I would brief them about what I've done between the last meeting and the meeting I'm having with them. And so I would structure and lead the meeting. Now, nobody ever trained me to do that. That was just something I did because it's what I do at work. So I just assumed, and I know we shouldn't assume, but I assumed that our doctoral students would do the same thing. So they would come to a meeting and do the same thing and tell me what they've done between the last session and this one. But I found myself getting frustrated, and it wasn't just myself, it was other supervisors, because we wouldn't be using the time to the best that we could. So created this sort of structure where students had an agenda format because they're probably not used to agendas. So they'd create an agenda beforehand. They would talk about what they did, but there's also talk about what challenges they encountered and what they did to resolve those challenges themselves, rather than bringing those challenges to the supervision session, because that's another thing that used to happen. Students would come along with questions about something, and I'd be like, well, you could work that out by doing some reading or speaking to other people first. So that was really useful. And then the other one was a post supervision summary. So as a supervisor, we have to provide something in eVision to summarize our meeting with a student. And for me, I felt, well, I shouldn't be making the notes here because the student should be making the notes because they need to know. Create this template for them. They then send me and the other supervisors that template about 3 days after the meeting. And it summarizes what they discussed and their actions. And for doctoral students, they found that really useful because it helped them to manage their own learning. It helped to manage us as supervisors. We felt, that we're all working together rather than not knowing what's happening, which does happen on occasions. So anyway, so I tried that with the master's students, because what I found with our master's students was that they had the same problems, that they're not used to that way of working, especially our overseas students, so who expect us to tell them what to do rather than them telling us what they have done. And actually, it's been really helpful because the master's students I've had have all submitted on time. They all knew actually when I had my annual leave, not when to send me stuff. So, you know, I told them when that was happening. So at each meeting, they talked about not only what they had read, what challenges they had, how they overcame them, and also what they were going to do next. So using myself as a supervisor to help guide and support them through the journey rather than do the work for them. So for me, that was a really good learning experience, and I think that's been about 5 minutes. I think I've covered 5 minutes. That's good. So so it's a really good learning experience, and I'm hoping that, I don't know, what would be interesting is to hear what other people do. But firstly, do you have any questions for me about that example? Anyone?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think supervision is one of those areas of our work that in many ways I think provides some of the most satisfying interaction on that one-to-one, where, you know, we are able to bestow our kind of expertise and we can see the benefit it has directly on the student, you know. So yeah, so the question for me would be about the level of supervision in terms of master's supervision versus doctoral supervision. You know, what have you learned from, you know, these different levels of, you know, study that students are engaging, and what different types of strategies or what is required from students at different levels?
I think that's an interesting question, because I think the doctoral students that I've supervised, they seem to need more support than ever before, because a lot of our doctoral students have studied their masters with us. So I think that experience at masters level, where they are being supported quite a lot, has been feeding into that doctoral level. And again, with our master's students, they, you know, they've never had to do this before. Most of us haven't. You know, when you do a master's, it is a strange experience the first time you do a project with a supervisor. So for me, it's about moving students to be more independent in their learning, but also to use me as a resource. So I'm not going to just let them, you know, free and not give them any support, but I'd want them to think about how they can use me in the best way. You know, what's the best way to use this time, rather than just ramble about stuff and fill the space that we, you know, we've got an hour and let's just fill it. So that's why I'm doing that. And also, it's a employability skill. I talk to them all about the next step for them after a project or after their PhD is looking at is their careers. So, you know, what do they need to do? It's not about writing a document. It's those skills of working with people that they need to go away with. So those are some of the things that sit beneath these strategies. Rathnakar, you had a question.
Yes, Ranjit. Thank you for giving us, you know, these insights, and you know, following up on Marc's, you know, query. So you were talking about, you know, the doctoral students, the masters, and I want to, you know, move a little bit down towards our undergraduate, you know, Marc's module, you know, 6HL007. So, you know, they are all similar, isn't it? But at different levels. So with the student engagement, you know, what you have already been doing, you know, it seems quite successful. So how can we, you know, improve the same level of maybe student success at the undergraduate level? So what, you know, takeaway points, or you know, how would you suggest for us to make an improvement with their submissions, you know, at level 6?
I think I don't supervise at level 6, so because I supervise at the other levels and I've got all these other duties. But looking at it from the outside in, you're right. There's a lot of students who don't submit, but I also know there are a lot of staff who struggle with supervising at that level because they're perhaps not supervising so much at other levels. So I think having that structure just helps everyone know what they're doing. And I do like structures, but nothing that's too complicated. So, you know, if I shared this, it is literally just some thinking points. That's all it is. And an agenda is just a basic structure of, you know, what have you done since the last meeting? What do you want to talk about in this meeting? And well, also, you know, what's some of the problems that you've resolved? So I think we could use that at level 6 and maybe share it with staff as well who are less confident in working in that way. There are some people who, you know, we all know this. There are some people who expect students to just come along and they don't think that they need to nudge them too much because they should already know this. But I think we do need to support them a little bit more. So maybe using that with them. So I hope that helps. Any other questions? I think we'll, okay,
Thanks,
one more
Ranjit.
question.
Yeah,
Thank you.
maybe I'm not sure whether it's a question, but I'm kind of wondering, a structure is good with all these forms, and it would be good only for students who are motivated. So I'm just wondering, I'm sure there is a difference between the master's student and the PhD student, because the PhD student are people who are really want to do it, and occasionally we do have a couple of students who are not really into it. So I'm just wondering whether you have seen any difference within your master's student who are, I mean, it's obviously linked to engagement, but I'm just wondering whether having the structure really helped the master's student with your experience.
Yeah, I think as we know, I mean, most students are motivated. They wouldn't be here otherwise. You know, they're investing their time, but it's those other things that get in the way, and that's what I find. I think this helps them to focus. So I think the difference between doctoral and master's students, I don't think there's much of a difference at the moment. That's what I'm experiencing. I'm experiencing that the doctoral students have the same time pressures of doing all these other things that they're engaged in, as well as doing their doctoral studies. Same with master's students. So for me, it's just that way of having a log that just helps us. And yeah, I agree. We don't have too many forms. For me, I didn't want to create a bureaucratic system that would just get in the way of what we're doing. So I don't know if that quite answers your question, but
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether, I mean, when I'm being assigned master student, I see a variation across, you know, like
yeah.
say 6 or 7 students, maybe half of them are not engaging, basically. I mean, obviously, even ultimately they do, you know, they don't do like consistent, you know, at intervals. They do give you work right at the end. Maybe like I have currently one who just about to finish, and he's really working intensively at this point of time to submit. So although I have met him a couple of times in the beginning, but then you don't see them at all after that, and they come at the end. So having the forms is good. Actually, I like it. But I'm just wondering, do you have are you flexible at, you know, with this? Because we always said that we want students to see us at how many times throughout the semester, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, what I did was actually the first meeting set all my meetings right up to the end, and I told them where my where my holidays are going to be. So they were very clear that they couldn't send me a piece of work 2 days before I was going to go on leave, or if I had a study leave, because I wouldn't look at it. So because I had that problem before, I had people sending me stuff and then very last minute and sending me the whole thing to look at. And so I made it very clear, these are the meetings we're having, this is what I expect from them. And it's worked quite well. I think I've had some good students this year. So, but I mean, we can trial it in other areas, see how it works with other students.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think what Jennifer's touching on, as I interpret it, is the difference in motivation. I would expect myself that the doctoral students are more academically motivated than master's students in general, because you're taking it to quite a high level, whereas I think many of our master's students, they see getting the master's degree as a way of progressing their careers, often in their own countries, whereas a PhD student, to me, speaks of something of a higher level of academic interest in a specialized area. But I do think, following Rathnakar's point, that it does raise the issue about what is our approach to supervision and whether we have a standardized approach. I don't mean standardized in terms of style, but in terms of, you know, the structuring of meetings, what we expect from students. Because as far as I'm aware, again, I might be wrong, you know, if we have to supervise at masters, we are supposed to have undergone the training that is provided online. Whereas I think, as Rathnakar says, at 6 HL007 undergraduate level, pretty much anybody can supervise, and that does raise issues about whether we are giving students, even if they are, you know, motivated, are we giving them the level of support that they need and deserve?
I think something that's consistent as well from those levels, because our students do progress with us. So they'll go from undergraduate masters to doctoral. And I think we need to understand that the support they get should be similar, but maybe built on in a different way. So that's something we can look at in another day. Anyway, my time is up. So we'll move over to the next person. So who would like to go next?
Okay.
Shall I choose?
Shall I go
the next one?
next?
Jennifer next, and then Jennifer,
I'm
you
not
can choose the
really.
next one afterwards.
Okay, I'll try my best. Okay.
So I'll keep the time. So you've got 5 minutes.
Okay. So I'm the program lead for the Masters of Public Health Online. So this is the program in partnership with the higher education partner. So what is good about this program is that the HEP partner is looking after the student well-being, and recruitment is actually undertaken by a group in admission. So they look at all those things. So I don't have to look at, you know, anything like that unless they have got some student applicants who need some well, they're not very clear and they will ask me. What is good about this program is that there is a very clear structure on how to develop the modules, and they seem to have have provide, you know, people to kind of like monitor us, but not so much as to help us develop, but more like guiding us through the module development. And my colleagues here are all have good experience, I guess. They could tell us more about it. Right. I think from what I've seen with the structure that we have with HEP in terms of module development, I think it's a good structure. If we could adopt it across to the other program on campus, I think that would really help our students. And I think I'm very lucky in this program, unlike the other programs, online programs in the university, is that we have a team of staff who are really committed to develop the modules within our program. Although we do have a couple of modules that we need to identify people from outside to develop them. So my role actually, apart from the overseas, the development of the modules, liaising with HEP partners, I also liaise with the other program leads and having like, you know, monthly, or I can't remember, every 3 weeks meeting, and also other meetings with the chair or lead of the whole HEP programs. So we are kind of like because it's a new program, this online with HEP partnership is really new, and this are managing quite well. And I think we are also very lucky because we have an online facilitator who is very experienced, not really in teaching, but surprisingly, he's really very good in supporting the student and answering the questions. So we have very good feedback from students about these online facilitators, and we are lucky that he's willing to stay on to help us with delivering the modules so far. So so that would be it for me. Do I still need to talk?
No, you're fine. You've just under one minute left, but I mean, you've
Okay.
talked about a range of things with the HEP program. So, I mean, I've got a question straight away, because you mentioned in that outline about the structure that they adopt for the development of the modules. Now, we're all HEP experts here because we've all been involved in this, so we know this. But for anyone who's listening to this afterwards, could you explain a little bit about the structure?
Okay, so basically, the HEP program is running on a carousel approach, which means that we have on this program, correct me if I'm wrong, I can't really remember, 10 or 12 modules.
12.
And there are small modules like 15 credit modules, and then the final modules is the dissertation modules, which is 30 credits. But student can hop onto the program at the start of any one of these modules. So the module runs every 8 to 10 weeks. Yeah. So we have new student every 10 weeks. We have got new student on this program. And it's very intensive in the sense that, if you are doing the program, you get a week or two rest, and then you start again the next one. So what students do is that they can either take what they call an informal break or the formal break. Informal break is just they take a week in between the two modules, and they take a module off and then they start again. If they want a formal break, then they have to apply, and then it's a longer break that they have. And obviously we don't encourage that. So then that is the program as a whole. And with regards to module development, so we are given a very structure, we're giving a structure to develop the module. So we start off with us, the head person will contact the module developer, or they call the module author, and to discuss about the planning of the module, the timeline, and what they need to do in the module. And so we have to develop 8 weeks of materials. So within the 8 weeks, there are lots of little chunks of stuff that we have to develop. And we have to follow the guidelines of the HAP that HAP laid out, so that we make sure that we are not doing too much, basically. So I think for me anyway, because I'm going to start mine, it seems that it seems easy, but actually it is not. It requires a lot of resources, a lot of time to develop this module. And so I think you guys can talk about it. I mean, Marc has lots of experience. Rathnakar has got lots of experience, can talk about, how this module development is like, because I haven't gone down that route yet. So is that enough to answer your question, Ranjit?
Yeah. I think you're right about the time. I think when we were all looking at this to begin with, we thought, great, it's it's really well structured, and I think, but actually doing the work, I'm just at the beginning of a module development, well, sort of a quarter of the way through now, and yeah, it does take quite a lot of time, so around everything else you're doing. So, but I do like the structures that they adopt. I think it hasn't been too onerous. The structures I felt have been quite supportive. So
I think what it forces us to do, and Rathnakar probably agree, it forces us to really crystallize what we are covering every week, and what principles, concepts, theories. We're not doing a 3-hour lecture. What is the essential thing I want my students to cover this week, and how am I going to build on that with the reading or the exercises? I think in a way that perhaps we probably don't really do it when we're doing our undergraduate kind of big lectures. And so I think that has been valuable in making us reflect on the kind of key elements of what we're delivering. The other thing I would just raise as a question for Jennifer is, this idea of an online facilitator. I mean, it makes me think, do we have a comparable role for that at undergraduate level? I know we have level leads. I know we used to have any academic coaches. Or is there a sort of, kind of non-commissioned, kind of slightly free-floating person who students feel that they can kind of engage with, perhaps in a way they might not with, the module leader or the module team, that they could get that ongoing support with?
I think to me, this is a good structure for us to follow, right? Like what you said, that it actually making sure that the person who developed the module every day in the week, we need to crystallize what we need to get across, what are the learning outcomes. And if the module is really big, then the person who developed it, has to think about, what do I want the student to learn every day for this week? So that is why the resources. But with regards to the online facilitator, I just think that at the moment, this approach, what we are doing with this program is that our staff cannot deliver the online, modules. we are recruiting people from outside. And if we are to apply this approach to our undergraduate program or our master program on campus, we really need to think about what is the right way to do it, because we can't actually depend on an online facilitator. We are just lucky in our program that we have an experienced person who work in health protection, and he is an epidemiologist, and he actually very rounded. He knows mixed method. He knows health promotion. He has a degree, a master degree in public health. He has a master degree in business study. He is really rounded, and he was a dentist in his past.
Yeah, I think what Mark is mentioning. I think we need to be careful, because for our undergraduate curriculum, I think we have some specific set of hours where we need to have that face-to-face support or something. Online is something which is purely dedicated. The online, we don't have that face-to-face support. The onus is on the student. But I don't think this works. That is just my
Yeah, if I
opinion.
may add, so what we are
Yeah.
discussing at the moment is that it's good to have a face-to-face, maybe once a week, a face-to-face online, because in the other program, this is what is happening. They're putting in a face-to-face because students are requesting for it. So, I mean, I'm examining for another university that is doing a Master of Public Health online. They do every Friday evening, they have a face-to-face, a seminar with the student, and they are doing really well in that program. The students are doing really well.
So that might be something we might want to look at to sort of modify the model a little bit. Can I ask you a question? I think we're almost running out of time for you, Jennifer, but one other question, and I think it's been really impressive, is how you have worked with a team of people and basically got the best out of them. So what is your secret? What have you done in that process?
I think to me, I have always been a team worker. So I'm never like work by myself, and I'm always like, I cannot, I don't work alone. I need other people to work with me. And I don't start like, oh, right, we're having this head program now, and I'm only starting to know my colleague. So I work with everyone from the beginning. I don't know. I mean, you know me. You guys know me. I cannot tell you how. I don't have a secret, basically. All I know is that I do my best. And I always feel that if I do my best, other people will see that I'm doing my best, and they will do their best too. And I make sure that I actually look after my colleagues, basically. I think that is the best. That's the best I could do to people who actually help me. And I want to make sure that they also, get something out of it.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is because every aspect of my work is enjoyable, obviously, but that has been the most enjoyable thing for me this year, is to work with a group of people who have just got on with stuff. We are all prepared, willing, we've all done that sort of stuff, and I think that's been a positive thing, positive experience. Okay, so we'll move on. You can choose the next person, Jennifer. Who's going to go next?
Rathnakar.
I thought it would be Mark. I thought I would go in last. Mark, would you, if you don't mind?
Yeah, save the best for last. So Marc next.
Yeah.
Okay. But as the aim of this exercise, I presume, is for us to kind of reflect on our own teaching, and also about what we can learn from the team around us, our peers. So, I mean, I think generally the last couple of years have been an interesting educational experience in terms of our move from being predominantly a campus-based course to, obviously, as a result of COVID, we were teaching online. And then last year, there was some kind of blending of both approaches, but with this onus on returning to campus. And I think for me, it's what I'm still kind of wrestling with, I've been teaching for over 30 years now, is like still feeling like we haven't hit on the right model for the types of students that we are teaching at undergraduate level, from often, you know, non-traditionally academic backgrounds, people who are working. And it's taught me, I think, that however principled, you know, some of the theories underlying our approaches are, unless we really fully understand and address the student needs and abilities, that we are not going to hit the targets for ourselves as a university, or we're not also going to help these students reach their potential. So I'm also, in a way, kind of learning from my development. I've developed 2 modules for the HEP program, and again, I know this is a very different cohort of students, but what I think I've learned that I'm taking forward this year is this idea of breaking down the content of what we teach into the essential elements. You know, we're not overwhelming students. You know, I think Ranjit, in other meetings, you talk about essentialism. You know, what is essential? You know, let's not anymore kid ourselves. You know, when I was at university 30 years ago, you know, this idea of creating is 1,000 book reading list, you know, off you go and read it. You know, our students are not in that kind of world anymore. So breaking it down into the essentials and backing this up with activities and self-reflection exercise, that is a key, that is the hub of, I think, the HEP approach. And it seems to me, if you look at that, it's very student, it requires quite a lot of student engagement. And when you actually transpose that onto our student, I feel like we expect very little of our students. And we, a bit like a parent who's going around picking up the child's clothing from the floor or crisp wrappers everywhere, you know, because we want our house to be tidy. We are not actually benefiting them. You know, we might be thinking, hey, look at what we're doing. We're doing this. We're giving them, you know, we're making ourselves more available for tutorials. We're providing extra reading material. You know, we're providing more assignment support. But it's always about us. So I suppose my learning experience of the last year has really been kind of cogitating upon, you know, what is it we should be doing, you know, because I think it does have implications, not just for students and for the university, it has implications for us as staff and our satisfaction with what we're doing. You know, we've obviously at some point come into the job because we enjoy teaching, we want to impart our knowledge, we want to inspire people. But if staff are getting burnt out, fed up, stressed, demoralized, something is going wrong. So I really feel, you know, this year, and I know we've had quite a lot of you know, people viewing this won't be aware of this, but we've had quite a lot of let's get back to basics and let's build from foundations again. What is it how should we be structuring our timetable? How should we be organizing our Canvas sites in a more stripped down, you know, easy to understand way? And I think for me going forwards, I will hopefully take on board some of the HEP approach in terms of making sure the sessions are more distilled into bite-sized chunks. I won't be doing everything. I won't be wearing myself out trying to explain things a million times. I won't be, you know, talking, you know, answering my own questions in class, you know, to you know, people are not responding. So, yeah, I think that's my learning experience going forwards this year has been, you know, blending the best of what's happened during COVID. I do think there is a strong role for online, you know, learning. I think this idea of, I do like the idea of continuity of support for students. I feel like, given the scale of our courses, that we're a little bit like a captain who sets sail on a ship with all the passengers on board, and then we get to the destination, it's like, oh, 27 people never made it. They've somehow gone overboard, you know, and we didn't have any faintest idea they weren't even on the ship. I think we've got to be much more proactive and create a culture in which students feel a sense of belonging, which is much more easily created within a smaller group, like an online course where you have a smaller cohort. I feel we need to try to instill that kind of sense of belonging and identity, that, you know, we're not helicopter parents, but we are aware they're on the course and we are here to support them, and we will be sort of checking on their progress. And that way, I think we would get more satisfaction for ourselves in that we are teaching people who want to be there, and they're also meeting their kind of not just their academic, but also Randy talked about their employability skills as well.
Cool, thank you. So, any questions from anyone? I mean, we have talked about this quite a lot, actually. So I think there's some things like, for example, doing the essentials first and building our students' knowledge up, because what we've tended to do is throw everything at them, hoping that they will pick out the things that they need. And what tends to happen is when I've moderated for modules and I've looked at some of the modules, I've noticed that none of the content is actually in the assignment. You know, they haven't even looked at the essentials of what people have taught them, and it's a shame, because those are the ones that probably haven't even passed, because they could have passed if they just looked at the essentials of each week or the content that would have helped them with the assignment. So I think that's a really good point. Jennifer, did you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, Marc was saying two things at the end, was about getting students to be more proactive and creating a sense of belonging. I just feel that I don't know where we have got it wrong in our approach. What we need to do from the beginning, is it because we have not shown that we care and we love them? I mean, what is it? I mean, really, I mean, why is it that they're not proactive? Is it because we are spoon feeding them? Even though we are spoon feeding them, we put everything on canvas, they are still not proactive. So, and then the other question about sense of belonging. Have we really not done enough to create that sense of belonging? I think we've done so much. Even if we are not doing it, you know, as a program, I say for undergraduate, but at the module level, I'm sure all of us are trying to get students to feel, you know, to create that sense of belonging, to motivate our students.
Yeah, no, so, I mean, I totally agree, and I'm trying not to, you know, develop a, you know, sense of defeatism or failure, but I do feel obviously it does come back to perhaps the circumstances of our students and their backgrounds and why they're here and their academic credentials, but we can only deal with what we're dealing with. You know, it is what it is, you know, so we, you know, so I do feel like, as Ranjit says, you know, the more we spoon feed, I think we're in danger of embedding a culture of low expectation.
Yeah,
you know, it's a bit. I mean, I went on holiday and it was like there was a. I don't know if this is a correct analogy or whatever, but there was a hot tub there, you know, which is very nice. But on the hot tub was all these like warnings, you know, warning: don't stay in for more than 10 minutes. You know, if you're pregnant, don't go in. Keep children away. You know, make sure the lid isn't, you know, is securely fastened. And it's like I almost think when students come on our courses, we're always saying, hey, here's your academic support. Here's your anti-plagiarism awareness. Here's your special counselling. It's almost like we're trying to say. Almost saying, look, we want you to walk this tightrope, but even if you fall off, you know, we've got all these soft play mats underneath, and somebody will come and pick you up by helicopter. I do sometimes feel that we are sending unintentionally, and for, you know, very noble reasons, we are sending out messages of we don't expect very much from you. And I do think the crux of going forward is somehow, you know, obviously not taking away everything and saying you're on your own, you know, we just want the creme de la creme to succeed, but it's somehow creating softer levels of support with, you know, without sort of taking away the safety net, but without spoon feeding. That is a challenge, you know, and I think
if we work on Ranjit's premise, I mean, all of us will want to believe this, is that every student who comes to us, they come to us because they want to study. Then surely we should be successful, isn't it? If we, why, so maybe I don't know, you know, when I come to this country, when I first came to this country to study, and even when I was teaching some of our students now, a lot of, I mean, actually, maybe to put it bluntly, when I was teaching, you know, some student here, they said that I'm very rude. I'm not, my culture is different. Because I kind of like to tell students very straightforward. And a lot of our students are, you know, are from, I could say, similar culture with me. They can take the way I say things to them. They don't mind that I'm straightforward. But there are some students who say that I'm really rude. They don't like that approach. So maybe the thing is, I feel that if we believe that, I know that our students don't just simply want to come, pay so much money and not want to study. There must be something we are able to do with our students. We should start at that point, rather than at the moment we are like one size fit all, our approach.
I think there's something that Marc said. Can I just say there's two things that it's been dying to say, because I think something you said, Marc, about, I mean, the first example was the hot tub, and about what you said, Jennifer, that, you know, our students really want to come here, but something's putting them off. And I think the hot tub example is quite a good one. You know, that excitement of, oh, we're going to the hot tub, then you get there and you're like, all these rules, and it's like, oh, I can't be bothered now, because it's like, you know. So I think that's probably a good way of thinking about our students. They get here, and then all we ever do from the first minute they get here is talk about plagiarism. We talk about all these things, and we don't actually talk about the essentials of what you're here to learn. And I think if we did that, we wouldn't have to talk about plagiarism so much, because then they get to enjoy it. And the other example, which is quite funny, was, Marc, when you said about, you know, we're like parents, like, you know, tidying up after them, picking up the crisp wrappers. And then the first response you said, Jennifer, was, haven't we done enough? It was like a parent saying, haven't we done enough for these children? And they're still not grateful. And it's true. I think sometimes we do all.
But I think, I think the crucial concept to me is communication.
Yeah.
You know, I learned long ago when I was teaching, you know, health ed, you know, I think it was Laswell, it was a political theorist. Communication is a two-way thing. I think there's too much one-way communication, and we are dealing with quite often what is almost like a black box of unknowingness. We don't know what's going on in our students' world. So ideally, and I know this is resource issues, ideally, you know, not that we're Oxbridge or anything, but it would be lovely if we almost had even like a once a fortnight, one-to-one tutorial, whether it's online, with every student, to, you know, check up how they're getting on, how they're progressing, how they're feeling, rather, like I say, like the ship analogy, rather than leaving it right till the end and then problems are then piling up in terms of resits and your lack of motivation, etc.
I was going to say that
Go on, Jennifer.
I mean, I was the last time we actually talked about this, we were talking about the academic coach. I'm not really sure whether that is the right approach to have this one-to-one tutorial. I always feel that if we want students to be successful, it has to be us who should be talking to the student, not somebody outside the team.
Oh no,
outside the team.
I didn't mean the academic coach. I meant ideally it would be somebody from the module team. Yeah.
But currently we are using academic coach to pick up, and I just feel that this is not a good approach. And I also feel that the other thing about communication is that we are always like going round the British way of going round it, always says a positive thing, but never talk about it. It's also, I could see from how we provide feedback. You know, our feedback are never direct. It's always like, oh yeah, this is a good point, you know, but you could improve it this way. We are always being asked to be so careful about how we phrase our comments. It's good. It's good in some way, but it's not good in certain way.
Yeah, and I think Marc, you've raised a number of issues that we could be talking about for hours. I think there's lots of stuff there around the changes in our students and how we deal with those. And I think Jennifer, you know, you taught me a few things about how to be direct with students, and also, you know, students, when they have raised concerns, not complaints, they've often said, you know, Jennifer said this, and I said, well, why is she saying it? She's only trying to help you. And then they realize, they're like, actually, yeah, what's in it for her? She wouldn't be doing this for any fun.
No, I'm learning a lot from you about communicating the other way, Ranjit.
We're learning from each other. We're getting to a balance. So,
but I think what we are sharing today in this meeting, we're recognizing there is no one easy solution to what we're facing, and everything we're talking about, how we structure our learning into maybe smaller segments, how we provide standardized forms that are quite simple to fill in, you know, how we kind of communicate with our students more regularly. These are all parts of the bigger jigsaw, which hopefully will create, you know, a better student experience and a better teaching experience.
And that's a good example, because I mean, you know, I've come up with things and I've said, oh, we're piloting this for 6 months, and we probably haven't even got through the 6 months. We've ditched it 3 months through because we've thought it's not working. So I think we've got to constantly try new things, and I think is not to feel it's a failure. Is that we're trying and exploring, and our students constantly flex and change. And on that point, let's move to Rathnakar finally. So your example.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And yeah, I think it is kind of difficult to pinpoint a single example, but I would like to share my experiences in relation to both two ends of the spectrum, where I teach from level 4 to the HEP module, what we have been talking about. And I would like to give the example of the inclusive curriculum framework, which is the talking point within our university. And I think it has given me a kind of the framework to adapt and follow it, so that it kind of ultimately leads to the student success, which we all as academics and as a university, if we want to to be successful, so we want to adapt that. So, and as the learning and teaching strategy, which within our principles of learner engagement and a subject forming that subject communities and learning opportunities. So to give those examples, again, at level 4, I always try to pick up the physiology as an example, because as such it is on its own, it is a subject where it has to be taught by people who have the experience and expertise. And at the level 7, again, I want to talk about the health protection module, which have been a part of our new HEP program. So within this two areas, at level 4, we had to give lot of support to the students, because as Marc was mentioning, the cohort we have, and the with the academic background, they come to us, and as Jennifer has mentioned, with passion and love, they come to learn from us. So to make them successful, it is it's like spoon feeding, because it is a subject area which is purely technical. And so for that, we had to have some kind of create that learning environment. So to create that learning environment, we always once the teaching session is over, we always made sure that every week we had that 1 hour of we don't call it an assignment support, but giving the responsibility. If we talk about the shared responsibility, we have given that responsibility to the students to come up and prepare for the assignment. So it is a kind of group exercise where people will learn from each other, having that sense of community. And it translated well for their ultimate success at the end of the year assessment. And also we had that flexible learning, both with online support and face-to-face support. On the other end of the spectrum, if we see as you all mentioned, really it was challenging to develop the content for the HEP module, and because it is very intensive, 7 weeks. And as we were mentioning, in comparison to lectures with the level 4, where you teach a couple of hours of lectures, and there is a kind of a takeaway home message at the end, where we need to intersperse it all along the 2 hours lecture. But at the master's level, it was done in such a way that all those bite-sized lectures are always the take home messages. But again, if you look at the difference between the learning communities, level 4, they are just, given the circumstances, they are the first within their generation, to come to the university. So, it was a bit challenging, to imbibe that take home messages to those students. But at the other end, the master students, they know what they are doing, because they are all had high qualifications. The cohort are, I think most of them are professionally educated, so they were able to work on their own, to have that successful engagement with the module content. So it is quite a bit challenging. And yeah, I think it is always, we tend to, with these type of having these discussions and engagement with our colleagues, we always find, I think, new ways of making things easier for the successful student transition. And yeah, I think yeah, it was quite challenging and a learning experience for me, at the both ends of the spectrum. So
That's great. I think again you've highlighted some interesting differences between those two areas, and you talk about inclusive curriculum design and some of the issues. Again, there's a lot of things there. So I mean, I've got a question. I mean, how do you find teaching at those two extremes? I mean, in the past, what we used to have was people who just used to teach at sort of one level, but now we're teaching across the levels. I mean, how do you cope with that? What's your sort of strategy, understanding the student's background and what they need?
yeah, that's a really good question, because we are able to adapt teaching different levels. As I mentioned earlier, the level 4 students, what the cohort we have, it was kind of similar to my previous, where I worked in previous universities, University of South Wales, where we had this similar kind of cohort. And that has given me, so I'm talking from my personal experience. So the cohort is similar, and it was successful teaching there. And it's like, because they are first within their generation to come to the university, not having the right qualification, most of them are mature. So I think at this level, at level 4, I think it is more kind of hand holding, giving them the support where and when it is needed. And as I know Marc vehemently opposes the word spoon feeding, but I think at level 4, that initial module, I think we do a lot of spoon feeding, because it is a highly technical subject, and it has to be spoon fed. Otherwise, the success rate will be very less. And teaching at level 7, as I said, most of them are again, if you take Maslow's hierarchy, once at the master's level, they are at the level of self actualization. So they know what they are doing, and they know their career goals. So they are more focused, and they try to extract what is required for their personal growth. And according to the cohort, you vary your style and teach them what is required, and also show them the links between the real world experience and what we are teaching within the classroom. If they are able to make that connection and see the wider picture, then they make that engagement with us, and they get best out of the lectures. But at level 4, I think it is difficult to comprehend, for them to comprehend at a bigger picture. I think maybe by level 5, I think they can make those connections. But that is what my experience is.
I've got another question. It's something that I think all of us have talked about around student needs, and you've just mentioned it again about the needs at level 4 and having to spoon feed them. So I'm just interested, how do you know what their needs are, or is that what you're just, because, you know, is it something you think as a teacher, this is what they need, so that's what you've done, or is there something that's giving you some feedback?
Ranjit, see, first thing is we are all experienced academics, isn't it? We know, we have been teaching from a long time. We know the needs of the student, and you know how to extract it. Okay, we know some students are shy, some are vocal. So depending on that, we try to find, for people who are shy, we have that one-to-one interaction. At the end of the session, or before going to the session, you go 10 to 15 minutes earlier and have that interaction. Or you can say that, see, again, I try to pick them, if I think they are a bit shy, I try to pick them in the class, and I'll say that, see, I'm not picking you to strengthen your knowledge, but to have that interaction, because you need to come out, you need to break the shell and come out and have that interaction. So you give them, those positive experiences within the classroom where, they come out. So once you have this interaction, the people who are vocal are always vocal. They have that kind of interaction. And for those people, who need that little bit of help, you and as you know, we have that task sheets, and we use that. So there are many mechanisms, at this point of time, I cannot enumerate, all this, but we all know this, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a complex thing, isn't it, that we do.
Absolutely.
And sometimes reflecting on how we do it is the thing. Trying to explain to people is complicated. Jennifer.
But sorry, sorry, Jenny, you saying?
Can I say?
So I was going to follow up on this analogy of spoon feeding. I think we do use this analogy, and in some ways it's not, to me, a very appropriate analogy, because obviously you spoon feed a toddler or a baby because they can't feed themselves. It's a question of survival. I think when we are using spoon feeding in an educational context, we are talking about giving drips of information, and we are making it as simple as possible. But what is lacking from that, in the world, I'm not against starting with basics and building. I know I'm not, but I don't feel like, usually with spoon feeding, it's like, okay, I'm going to show you how to eat something, and then you demonstrate to me that you can do that skill. I don't think we get enough feedback from the students or demonstration that they have absorbed and internalized some of the knowledge that we are imparting in these bite-sized chunks. For all we know, they might be dribbling all over their bib, they're just not taking it on board. We never ask them to actually display it. I think that's where the analogy falls down in an educational context. There's nothing wrong with starting with basics, but we need that two-way communication to say, right, I've shown you this, right, you show me what you think you know. Or in a discussion or a classroom debate or some kind of formative assignment or whatever, I think we just need more feedback.
Jennifer.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the needs of our students. So I've been teaching the level 4 module. To me, the 4HW079 is not too difficult when it comes to addressing the different needs of our student. But I have got more problem when it comes to the 4HW032, which is understanding public health information. So we know that our students have not got very good numerical skill. With regards to understanding basic concepts of statistics and epidemiology, because we teach that in that module. So the way I did it is like I have to repeat every week. I repeat what I taught the previous week to build on that knowledge. So I kind of like repeat the lecture 3 times, and I always feel really guilty because I feel like I'm wasting time. And we are supposed to be teaching 12 weeks of content or 11 weeks of content, but I'm like repeating 3 times of contents, like every, keep on repeating. Because I just feel guilty that if I don't repeat, they don't understand when these are concepts that they have to understand. And I also have problems in class when I'm explaining, how to calculate average or, some ratio or whatever. A couple of students are actually really good at it. but the rest are not. So I'm like, oh God, I'm doing this, spending a lot of time with this group of students, but those two over there are actually sitting and I have to keep apologizing to them. So how do you deal with this, addressing the variation in with needs across, your class? That is what I would like to, to find out.
I mean, there's probably lots of answers, and I think we've, I think that's another whole topic, isn't it?
True.
But I think if it's okay, I mean, we'll draw this to a close because we have been talking for about 2.5 hours. For people watching this video, they won't realize we've been talking for that long because I'll have edited some bits out. So I'll keep this to about an hour length, if that's okay with you guys. But the 2.5 hours, I think it's been a great discussion. I've really enjoyed it. I think I've got a lot out of it, and I think it's been a good way to do this task. So